My girlfriend Kathy is a major history enthusiast. We've been together for about 8 years now, so we have traveled quite a bit together in that time. Over the past year, the history enthusiasm has turned into more of a paranormal hobby. As a skeptic, it is interesting to hear the stories that others have experienced, but I have not seen or heard anything until our latest trip together. What I experienced changed my views on many things. The trip was to an old, lesser-known plantation in the state of Louisiana. The surrounding area is thick with mossy cypress trees and swamps with dark, murky water. As evening fades, it is easy to imagine any number of mysterious creatures calling the area home. But for me, the mystery began in the home itself. The owners of the property run a bed and breakfast style business at the main homestead house. Guests are welcome to walk the well-manicured lawns and even conduct paranormal investigations if there are no noise complaints. The night we arrived, we were the only guests on the registry. As such, we were free to investigate and explore at our discretion. The owners lived in a cottage a small distance from the house. They were open about the haunted history of the location as they joined us for dinner. Guests have routinely told stories of hearing unexplained noises, seeing ghostly entities, and some have even reported being touched by the spirits. They had even experienced things that they couldn't easily explain. Kathy had excitement plainly showing on her face. I was very entertained but remained skeptical. After all, we had been to several reportedly haunted locations, and I hadn't seen or heard anything that couldn't be explained. After dinner, we went back to our room to make sure our limited gear was ready for our investigation. We had multiple cameras, voice recorders, and flashlights. As we strategically set up our cameras to cover spots in the house with the most reported activity, I noticed that a camera battery had suddenly lost charge. This was odd because I had just taken it off the charger. Thinking it was malfunctioning, I replaced it with a newer spare. The spare showed a low charge a couple of minutes later. Kathy pointed out to me that there is a theory that spirits can drain the energy in electrical equipment in order to use. I jokingly wondered how anyone would ever be able to prove that. We replaced the camera with one that did not have the same issues. That is one thing debunked, I sarcastically joked to myself. As the night arrived, we turned off all the unnecessary lighting in the homestead. It was time to investigate. The house was quiet except for the ambient nightlife from outside. Crickets and other insects were working overtime to fill the night with their songs. We started with a few voice recorder sessions in various parts of the home. It was peaceful and still within the home. Kathy wore our noise-canceling headset as I asked questions of the empty rooms. Suddenly, Kathy jolted up from her seat. She had heard a voice, a clear one. She came to where I was sitting and replayed the audio while I wore the headset. It was clear that the voice was not either of ours. The message consisted of one word: here. I could not believe what I had just heard. As I mentioned, this was the first time I had come into contact with something I could not easily explain. Kathy pointed out that the message directly answered the question I had just asked, which was if there was anyone else here with us. That could not be coincidence, and it rattled me. We resumed our audio session but did not capture anything else. It was time to move to another part of the home, which just so happened to be the room we had issues with the cameras in. Looking back, I realized that the room had an uneasy feeling to it, as if the air was thicker than the rest of the place. We started our handheld cameras and began conducting an audio session. Kathy was still holding the headset and was sitting across the room from me. I was positioned on a two-person couch and couldn't get comfortable. I could feel a strange shaking feeling as I sat there. The only thing I could think of was there must have been an AC vent below the furniture. It suddenly stopped and remained still for about 10 seconds, but then it abruptly started again. I stood up so that I could examine what was under the couch when it moved. I wasn't imagining things. It actually moved several inches across the wooden floor as I stood. The shock on my face must have been obvious because Kathy quickly came to my side. She had seen and heard it too. As we stared at the couch, I felt a burning sensation slowly creep across my back. I winced as the pain registered in my mind, and I grasped my back with my free hand. It felt like I had deeply scratched my back as I moved, except my back felt cold to the touch. It was a very odd feeling. Kathy noticed my reaction and asked what was wrong. I told her I must have done something to my back when I got up from the couch. She turned on her camera light and pulled up my shirt to reveal a clearly defined scratch mark running from my left lower side midway up to my right shoulder. We quickly examined what object on the couch had caused this, and couldn't find a single thing capable of inflicting the scratch. I had been lightly cut by something that wasn't there. The stationary camera in the corner caught the whole episode. It was plainly evident that the piece of furniture had moved on its own. It was also obvious that no object or instrument was there that could have led to the scratch on my back. We ended the investigation at that point and gathered our belongings. We were too afraid to stay the night and moved to a hotel a few miles down the highway. We let the owners know what had happened, and they mentioned that they weren't surprised. Activity had been noticeably high lately. We returned the next morning to show them what we had captured. To date, I think it is the best piece of evidence that they have of the spirits that haunt their old homestead. Kathy and I still investigate occasionally, but I'm no longer as skeptical as I once was. Nothing as terrifying as that incident has happened, and we have caught some great evidence since. I think the experience has brought us closer together, but I'm not sure I'd like to repeat it. I now have my own stories to tell people instead of just listening to others, even though it's still hard to believe that it really happened to me.